right. Hey friends, welcome to my channel. I wasn't planning on making a video today, but after last night seeing a clip of yet another celebrity using clickbait to make himself wealthy by highlighting photos of my minor son, I felt like it was time. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit today about the difference between Charlie and Candace. And I have this weird place where I'm somewhere in that whole 6 degrees of separation. I'm like at step number 2. I know a lot of people who know them and have worked with a lot of organizations that are tied adjacently to them. So the first thing is my husband was there that day. Here are some clips of his video. Now, I have said that it has gone viral, and I want to be clear. It has gone viral. His footage is the footage of all of the people who got down on their knees and then ran. But what he was there to do was record people like this. See, we're very interested, having moved here from Washington State, we're very interested in what is making red states turn blue and why it's happening so rapidly. And so talking to people and kind of figuring out where they're at is something that both of us are interested in very different ways. We, of course, had no idea that there would be an assassination. I need to make that clear, make my face here. We had no idea that there would be an assassination. If there was, well, we wouldn't have shown up. I wouldn't have encouraged a bunch of women that I work with to come and to bring their children. And I definitely wouldn't have brought my only son. I say only because there's tons of conspiracies out there. I have one child, or we have one child. And again, he was a minor at the time. And with all of this footage, people have gone as far as to go into his high school footage and to look up things. So I just want to let you see kind of how unreal this is for regular, everyday people. Sorry about that. So I brought my son for two reasons. I wanted him to come to a school that he likely would attend and to see kind of the radical ideology while he didn't have to be a part of it at the time. I wanted him to see that people can disagree, that there could be violence. And with this violence, I expected something like a tent to fall, right? I expected yelling, and there was that. I'll show you an image later of people standing up above holding their signs, including signs that said, "We were there when Utah turned blue." So personally, I admired Charlie for what he did, for what he stood for. But really, he spoke to a group different than either my family, so us being, middle-aged, everyday people, or my son, who was still a minor. He spoke to a different group. He spoke to this group of the college kids. And yes, there were younger people who listened to him and families, but it wasn't in my wheelhouse. What I appreciated about Charlie is that he stood when everyone else chose to be on their knees. And I appreciated that he stood for values they were common sense. Values like, let's protect families, let's grow our families, let's protect and grow our wealth, and let's not indoctrinate our kids. So those are the kind of things that he stood for. And he needed to. So he's here in Utah. He's giving his very first speech out here. All of these people are so excited, except for the people up on top who weren't. They're all excited to listen to him. And the very first question he's asked is a very long question. And it's a question that seems designed to make him shame or to separate him from the LDS people. The question is, are Mormons Christians? And so he's having this discussion, and he goes, I feel like you're really trying to to take me down here, to have me disparage people, and I'm not going to play that. I will say this. I've always, and this is almost a direct quote, I've always had a lot of respect for old school LDS, but you need to get your mojo back. And what he meant by that is we're turning into a progressive state, and it doesn't make any sense because most people look at Utah and they think, well, it's Utah. It's the most conservative, the most family-friendly state. And my friends, it's just not. So some of the things that he warned against were what's going on in our schools. And I'm just going to give you a quick glance at some of those things. This is our governor. Our governor, I've covered up the faces of the other two people because they were minors. But our governor was affirming. He was at a meeting affirming young people in their gender the same thing that you see over here with the safe and welcoming schools that's in most of our schools, even in a progressive place. And this is important to the conversation because Charlie was warning against it. So you see, back in the day, the people who were victimized, they had to wear like a badge, like maybe a pink triangle, maybe a Jewish star. Those are the kind of things they had to wear on their clothes. The people who wore the armbands, those were the baddies. And for some reason, we can't figure that out. We can't say, oh, that's not the best look. It's because we're not necessarily thinking, we're just moving towards progress, because progressives can be on the right or the left. Here's some other things that are in our schools. This is a safe place. You're safe, you're safe, you're safe. Constant safety culture. This comes directly from the governor's office. So think about that when you think about the things that Charlie was standing for and against. This is at UVU. UVU is a head school. I hope you can see this picture, but it's the global agenda, United Nations global agenda. UVU is one of the head schools for that. The school where Charlie was assassinated is one of the head schools for United Nations, for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. These are goals that are supposed to be in place by 2030. I've already got that one. Here's just examples of the kind of math that our kids are facing. Again, I'm not sure if you can see it because on my side, it's still saying uploading. So Charlie stood for something very different. Oh, here's another one. This one is how queerness and leftism are one and the same. Again, this will be relevant as we move through. Queerness and leftivism, and this is from a group called Queer Youth Assemble. Every single kid who's part of a GSA in their school, they get a little app that allows them to go to this page. When they go to this page, it tells them what they should protest for, what rights they should demand, right here in good old conservative Utah. So those are the things that Charlie was, you don't need that. You should focus on building. Now, on the other side of that was Miss Candace. And when I first came across Candace, you couldn't really find a bigger fan, because Candace was doing the things that I do in terms of speaking against diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I would call division, exclusion, and ideology. Candace was so poised and so confident, and she was saying things when it wasn't popular to say them. And I used to love it when people would say, oh, Carrie, she's like our own personal Candace. I do not love that anymore, because Candace, and she says this herself in her beginnings, Candace started off on the left. Candace started off woke. Woke can be on the right or the left. It simply means I have more knowledge than everyone else. And it simply means I lean towards totalitarianism. That's it in its most simple. I don't have a lot of time to explain this kind of form. So I respected how poised and polished she was, that she could command a room. But long before Charlie, I stopped listening to Candace because I thought that she was turning into a mean girl who just wanted to gossip. And I don't see that there's time for that. One of the things that Charlie warned about it with the fall of the West was not just LGBTQ incursion, but also people coming into our country, illegal immigration, and how that could be a downfall. So to me, those were the things that I focus on. And she wasn't focusing on those things. So for me, I was like, I don't do mean girl, moving on. It wasn't until I was invited to go to an event for the new turning point, and this is called Rise. Rise is an evolution of Blexit. For all the people who think that Charlie Kirk was somehow racist, it is not racist to tell the truth. In fact, the kindest thing that you can do to a culture is to tell them the truth and to help them rise. I did not like being a part of Blexit because I didn't like the idea of a group that focused on one nationality, that focused on one demographic. I thought that that was just, it wasn't as bad as what the left was doing, but it felt to me, because I see people as people, and there are good people and there are bad people, and they come in every shade. So that wasn't an issue for me. But when Rise came about, I was invited to go and to attend this event in Arizona. So I did. And I learned that Charlie fully funded Blexit, fully funded it, and never took credit for it. That's who Charlie Kirk was. Again, he was a builder. Now, there were some people who talked about Candace, and they talked in very guarded terms. But for somebody who supposedly started this organization, you'd think there would be praise. There wasn't. And it was probably because she has been quite self-centered probably forever. And I think that is something that people need to grapple with. And it's not easy to grapple with, because I was 100% duped. And I also think bad people can do good things. But I was duped. I followed her. I loved what she said. I took notes. I've got, screenshots of the things that she said. What a moment. And then she turned into this person who said some very clear words. Who cares about your stupid midterms? I don't care about politics for the sake of politics. I agree with the majority of people who think that politicians are slime. I know a few good politicians, and they are massively being targeted, and we'll move into that. But see, Candace's behavior touched my own family. So even after I was done with the whole, she's a mean girl, I'm not really interested, she's not talking about things that I want to, she's no longer talking about the things I'm interested in. My family came on her radar. My family came on her radar because my husband, who was filming all of these kids just talking about why they hated and trying to have a conversation, a man on the street conversation, he covered the people running, and he covered the aftermath. Well, and before, but he didn't get the actual killing shot. So he covered this. And all sorts of people who are just distracted, or maybe, and I can feel some empathy for these, maybe because of 2020 and all the crazy lies, nobody can believe in anything called truth. And I feel really sorry for you about that. But again, this is why Charlie was different. Charlie was rooted in truth. He was rooted in truth of a Christian nation, and people don't have to like that. But when you're rooted in something, it's harder to just toss that away. It's that firm foundation, and Charlie had it. And the people who have been able to kind of look around and still discern, they have it. Other people are looking for whatever, and they can't trust the government, and I completely get it. I completely understand what 2020 did to humanity. It is awful, heartbreaking, and Charlie stood against it. Whereas Candace, in my opinion, distracts people and then they don't stand. And she said it. One day I just heard a clip of her saying, "Who cares about your stupid midterms?" And I realized, oh, she wants us to fall. And I don't think people understand what that fall means. So let's go take a look at what that fall means just for Utah. So here's another picture. All of these people, Charlie was so racist, but he sure had a lot of fans who weren't white. All of these people came out to watch Charlie. It was hot. I was in like row 4 with a group of other people, and we're all sitting there excited. But if you look up above, you'll see the pride flag, and there were people who held those signs that read, "I was here when Utah turned blue." Those signs of the people who are just inherently contemptuous. They look at people who don't think like them and think they're dirt up beneath their feet. And so when Charlie said, "I hope you get your mojo back," he was addressing a certain type, oftentimes the radical feminist of Utah. He was addressing that and saying, "Eeh, don't go there." But instead, we went there. And the second that he was killed, I mean, within days, there was this event. This event turned towards each other. So they even used the words that Charlie used. They used "turn towards us." And they were exactly the people that Charlie was warning against. This person right here is Becky Edwards. This is Becky Edwards. I believe she's a former congressperson, a senator, I think, a state senator. Anyways, Becky Edwards has her hands in multiple groups. Okay, she has her hands in Equality Utah. She has something called the Governing PAC. And likely, I cannot say this for sure, but I do know that on this list, they are there. MWEG, Mormon Women for Ethical Government, Braver Angels, even the governors disagree better. All of these people, all of these progressive groups came together to stand and to talk for Charlie, to talk about the grief that was happening in Utah. These are exactly the people who Charlie would have said, "Oh, no, 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 those are not the people to follow." They are the people who then had the press conference. And we're going to get into the kind of people that MWEG supports. Braver Angels. I've been to several of their events. They're progressive. They will say, "Oh no, we fit both sides." And MWEG will say they're nonpartisan. So let's go take a look at some of MWEG's funding. Oh, I didn't want to go there yet. All right. Well, here's some of the people that MWEG supports. Hope you can see that picture. If you are watching and you can see that picture, please let me know in the notes. But this is a picture and it says "Queer Resistance." Queer Resistance has a picture of a person holding a rifle and, fully strapped with bullets. And it says "Agitate, educate, organize." Queer Resistance, main person's name is, hopefully you can see this, Ermiah Fanian. Ermiah Fanian, and I got this screenshot just to shout out to these people at Patriot Source. Ermiah Fanian ran the Salt Lake Armed Queers, or Armed Queers of Salt Lake. Okay, Ermiah Fanian is a trans woman and was given awards. So hopefully, again, you'll be able to see this. So she's in this picture here. She's given awards. She's been acknowledged in 2024 and also was a radical activist protester. Oh, sorry, that's so he's been to the White House, spoken on the floor of the Utah legislature. Anyways, these groups of people are who MWEG celebrates, who UVU, Utah Valley University, where Charlie was killed, celebrates. And they worked there. So my question then becomes, why? Why in the world do Candace and every single person that she speaks to and every person who listens to her and dissects every video that they can find to find the truth, why do they not go after these things? Why are these things untouchable? These groups are growing. Becky Edwards, she runs something called the Governing Pack, and she funded multiple people who are now going to be on our state and local school boards. Just $20,000 here, $20,000 there. And these people, they believe all of this. They are all about this. This is their focus. There were people who were running for office because they wanted graphic materials to be kept in schools. That is their focus. Remember, this comes directly from a school board site. I mean, you get onto, like, you type in your school district and you can find this. All you have to do is type in Student Success Center. Boom. All they did was change the name, by the way. So you have these people. So she's got the Governing Pack, and I'm going to show you where her money comes from in a moment. She's got the Governing Pack, and then there's another pack. And this one is really alarming. It's called the Conservative Values Pack. But they're fundamentally against conservative values. What they're trying to do is reframe them. So let me pull up that. I just asked Grok, MWEG, and it started with, oh, they're nonpartisan. And I said, okay, they're nonpartisan, but what do their values show? And this is what we get. MWEG is functionally a left-leaning advocacy group operating under a faith-based, nonpartisan veneer. They may sincerely believe their positions are ethical or Christ-like, but in practice, they consistently oppose conservative politics and align with Democratic Party's culture and political coalition. So these people who come out, they also are massively big on the concept of open borders. You'll see that there's this Muslim person here. They're massively big on the concept of open borders. This is what they want, and this is what they're getting. This is just another brand of Democratic Socialists of America right here in Utah that we don't address. And instead, we go after high school boys who shop at Old Navy. Do you understand why this matters yet? Let's take a look at some of their funding. Mormon Women for Ethical Government. Let me see if I pull this up a little bit bigger. Okay. Mormon Women for Ethical Government frequently collaborates and amplifies groups that are explicitly progressive. By the way, so do all those other groups that are affiliated with them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be allowed to be affiliated with them. So because they're nonpartisan, they can go to your schools and tell your kids the importance of voting for them. Okay? So Indivisible, an anti-Trump resistance group. Common Cause, a left-leaning voting rights group. Faith in Public Life, Progressive Faith Coalition, and Secure Democracy. Secure mob rule is what that is. Okay, some of the ideas that these people promote and that they brought out immediately. Charlie is dead, and within 2 weeks, there is a conference for these people, and it's the Dignity Index. And at the Dignity Index, people are like, oh, we need to have better conversations. Right. And the person who's doing the Dignity Index, his name is Tim Shriver. Tim Shriver used to be the head of CASEL, the Collaborative for Social and Emotional Learning, otherwise known as How to Brainwash Children. They decide what is appropriate language, and they rate you based on that appropriate language. 100% the stuff that Charlie said. Ask questions. And I'm pretty sure when he said ask questions, he didn't mean villainize my wife and destroy my legacy so that there's nothing standing. Whatever you think, you're not thinking about the alternative. You're not going, if we remove this, what replaces this? Because it sure looks like the DSA, radical red-green coalition, is coming in, is moving into places like right here. But you don't look at it. You just go, oh, I need to solve this mystery. You need to think ahead. We're on this precipice. There's a reason that when President Trump won, Charlie cried. Because so many people believed they were going to go to jail. If you don't have any kind of grasp that people were literally going to jail for thought, just like in the UK, then you're missing a big old picture. I have friends who cannot work in their profession because they expose what happens in mental health, in medical, and in schools. And it's all happening right here. And UVU is one of the main places that it's happening. UVU is the place with the Sustainable Development Goals. Go take a look at them. And don't just take a look and go, oh, that sounds good, that sounds good, that sounds good. Think about what globalized healthcare means. Think about what DSA says healthcare is. Because that's what you're going to get. And that's what he was warning about. But instead of paying attention to this man who is trying to build, who is trying to, quite frankly, to live his Christian walk, you're destroying it. You're destroying it for somebody who is not rooted in anything and who seems to be in love with power. I'm not one of those people who think she was in love with Charlie. And all these other people, they're just obsessed with, I need to get mine. I need to get mine. I need to get a piece of that. There are people who took my husband's footage and went from having, 300 followers to having 80,000 followers. Because they're all about, how can I get mine? And if I have to destroy the person who I once reached out and said, hey, can I take a look at your footage? I'm going to do it. And what you don't understand fundamentally is that that's why a Christian nation matters. Because Christians believe in turning the other cheek. Christians believe in going, wow, these people are really losing their minds. And I actually feel real empathy for them. But I'm also going to stand on truth, because at some point, people are going to look for truth. And when they look for it, I want to be there ready with open arms. Charlie's friends, his family, and his legacy are in shreds because somebody said, he's my friend and I'm going to solve this. But they weren't friends for like 2 years. So there's a difference between being an advocate, because an advocate builds up. An advocate sticks to truth, offers information, tries to help, sees a problem and says, how can I help? How can I fix this? And an activist who inherently, and if you've spent all of your years until, 10 years ago, being a leftist, then you were an activist. Because it's part of the whole thing. You can't have black faces that aren't, black faces that aren't black voices. So you have this ingrained must destroy, must get mine. And Charlie had this generosity from what I can see. I mean, my mind was blown. I was brought to Arizona for 3 days. I listened to people speak. I very much had this kind of guard. How many of these people are grifters? Because I don't want to be part of a grift. And I listened to these people, and I listened to their hearts, and I listened to where they were coming from. And it all had this Christian foundation that's being shredded. All these Christians are following this woman who says that she's a Christian, but then everything that she says is her own feelings. These are my feelings about. I don't actually read my Bible. I just go and listen to somebody else and they tell me what I should think. And also dreams. That is not a solid foundation. And I could be wrong. And I'm not afraid of being wrong because I believe that knowledge is power. But I know one thing I'm not wrong about is that everybody and their brother is throwing the noodles against the wall and seeing what will stick. And you're not even giving it a chance. You don't have a right to say, I want all this evidence right now. That's not the way a trial works. If it was, the defense would be like, oh, we've got everything we need. All we have to do is go with this. And instead, they need to go, wait, what? That happened? And I don't know what's going to happen there. I quite frankly, I pray for justice. As somebody who speaks out and never shuts up and is a whistleblower, I'm not without, it doesn't escape me that if Tyler is found not guilty, other people may decide to be copycats. And, oh well. Because you have to be so in love with truth. In this day and age, you have to be so in love with truth that the idea of compromising isn't even there. That is really the only way that you keep going. And that is fundamentally the difference between Mr. Charlie. In love with truth to the point that, oh yeah, he got death threats. Oh yeah, they probably said horrible things about his wife before she was ever in the line. It doesn't surprise me at all that he would say they want to kill me. Of course they do. They're totalitarian. And if you have a voice of power, love, and resilience that goes against resistance, resentment, and totalitarianism. So I thought that was an appropriate thing to say. I wasn't planning on making a video, but tomorrow's the 4th of July. We still have freedom for the time that we have it. And I really, really hope that people will think about the things that could actually have played a part. I'm not saying that they did. I'm just saying a lot of things make you go, that was convenient for them, because we just had our primaries and they just wiped them out. It went almost 100% to progressives in Utah. That's what we get for not caring. That's what we get for being distracted. Anyways, my friends, if this helped you think a little bit deeper, please leave your comments. If it didn't, you can leave your comments. I do ask that you're respectful, and I hope you have a wonderful 4th. Bye.